The Lexus brand has been in search of a popular selling entry-level model for a while now. A few years ago, it tried to offer up a kind of gussied up Prius in the form of the CT hatchback. And what Lexus quickly learned was that Americans, we don't like hatchbacks very much. So they went back to the drawing board and came up with this. This is the Lexus UX, the brand new entry-level model. We've got the hybrid flavor. You can also get it as a gas engine model. So does the UX act as a good entry into the Lexus brand, and does it serve as a better replacement for the old CT hybrid? Let's go ahead and check out what the Lexus UX hybrid is all about. So let's start off by checking the exterior of the UX, where I think it's a pretty overall handsome vehicle. We have the F Sport, which is definitely going to dial up the aggression on this vehicle. You can see we've got the large Lexus spindle grille. We've also got the cool LED headlights here. This gray paint job looks pretty decent. Like, I think I might want a little more vibrant color, but not a bad way to be stealthy, especially with the red interior that you're going to see a little later on. Now, this is based on the Toyota TNGA G platform, which is the same platform that the Corolla and the Prius are also built off of. So you can tell it kind of looks more like a wagon or a hatchback that's just been lifted a few inches. It's definitely not very tall, and I had more than one person mistake this for a Mazda. So I don't know how premium your neighbors are gonna think this vehicle is, but I think it looks decently nice overall. It definitely fits with the rest of the Lexus brand. Over here, we've got the F Sport package. So we've got these twin 5-spoke 18-inch wheels. We've got our F Sport badge over here. Although, as I show you when we get it out on the road later, I think the F Sport is a little more of an appearance package than an actual performance package. We have the hybrid letting us know that we have a UX hybrid down here. You do also get some suspension changes as well, but again, I didn't really notice that all too much out on the road. We've got a really cool back end here. Actually, these taillights are really interesting. They have like this raised part here. I love the connected taillight bar, although it doesn't actually like function super well. It looks like a Cylon with sort of the light in the middle. I think that's pretty cool. Here we've got our F Sport badge denoting that it is an F Sport model, with UX 250H signifying that we have the hybrid. All right, so time to hop in Lexus's smallest model to see how they've done on the interior, because when you're talking about an entry-level model into the brand, it can often be difficult to convey the features and premium feel that you get higher up in the range at an entry-level price, but it doesn't seem like Lexus has struggled at all. I've been in pretty much all of the entry-level compact crossovers, subcompacts, so you're talking about BMW X1, Audi Q3, Volvo XC40, and I think this UX might have the best interior out of all of them when you're talking about how it feels compared to the rest of the brand. Now, we are sitting in an F Sport model, which is the mid-level trim. You've got the luxury above this, but wow, these materials are fantastic. We've got this nice, sporty, perforated steering wheel with the red stitching. Love how this feels. This really feels like it came out of a very high-priced vehicle. We've got soft touch materials here on the door. I love these red leather F Sport seats. I would definitely do the F Sport package just for these seats alone. They're really nicely bolstered. They say F Sport on the headrest. I love the two-tone. I love how bolstered they are, but they're not like super uncomfortable like something crazy like an RCF. But they still have heating and ventilation, which is great. Leather here on the dashboard. All of the controls feel really nice, feel really tactile. I love this small ribbon for the climate control with these sort of toggle switches. That just looks really cool. It's just a really nice design in here, like a really nice cockpit with great materials overall. And there's more good stuff to the design too. Like, I love the gauge cluster. This is not new by any stretch. Lexus has been doing this on a lot of vehicles now, but we have the really cool, because this is a hybrid model, we have the power eco charge gauge here, and if I push this little button, it'll slide over James Bond style. Love that, super cool. The LC500 has this as well. This was originally shown on the LFA supercar, and here you can have your drive controls, your trip computer, things like that. You can have a G meter on your little 40 mpg hybrid crossover. You can get a G meter. That's kind of interesting. Slide that back. And I love how we have the little LFA style controller here. You can put it into eco mode. The only thing you get is a little blue thing letting you know it's in eco mode, or you can put it into sport, and now that charge gauge turns into a normal tachometer. That looks really cool. I love how cool that is. Now let's talk about the infotainment suite. Never my favorite subject to talk about in Lexuses. This one has the trackpad rather than the mouse style controller, so you can hit menu and you kind of have to use it like a laptop mouse pad. Don't love this. You know, I find myself missing the right buttons all the time. This one does have Apple CarPlay, and Android Auto gets added for the 2020 model year, so that is good. I really like to see that. And the UX is kind of unique because it has this little controller down here below it. Love this. I wish all Lexuses had this, actually. You put your hand on it, and from one position, you can access the volume, radio, media, forward and back for either a track or a radio station, and you get a scrolling tuning wheel. Love that. I love how this falls easily to hand. It's such an ingenious solution. For the first couple of days, I was always looking for a volume knob, but when I really got used to this, I'm like, wow, this is actually better than a volume knob. I think it's so super convenient. Bravo, Lexus, on a brilliant design there. Heated and ventilated seat controls are up here, conveniently placed, and we do have a wireless charger optional here with a little 12-volt outlet that pops up here. Now, that works pretty well. The problem is, if I do my CarBuzz cup holder index, I was going to give this car a 2 out of 5, but I'm actually going to give it just a 1 out of 5. There's only 2 cup holders here. If you had 2 cups here, it's going to block you from getting to your wireless charger. And I've noticed with my big Yeti, every time I bump, there we go, I just turned up the fan speed, I'm going to bump these climate controls. So I wish there was just a little bit more room here for the cup holders. So unfortunately, Lexus, you're going to fail the CarBuzz cup holder index with just a 1 out of 5. Now, I also want to mention, as part of the cup holder index, I usually include other storage areas. I mentioned the wireless charger is a little bit tough to get to. One thing that is really cool about this vehicle, you get one of these armrests that tilts over to the side, and now it's a little annoying for the passenger to get to because, you know, it's up on their side. If you close it, you can tilt it the other way so the passenger can access their stuff. And while this is up, you'll notice there's this little cubby area here right where the radio controls are. It's perfect for, like, if you're about to go into the ocean and you want to take your wedding ring off and you want to store it, you know, somewhere safe and away, but don't want to lose it in this big massive cubby. I think that's just a really clever little storage space. Now back here, you shouldn't expect Lexus's smallest model to be too huge, and it really isn't. You get 33.1 inches of legroom, which is actually small even by subcompact crossover standards. The BMW X1, Volvo XC40, they all have more, Audi Q3 as well. So not huge amount of room back here. Headroom's okay though. You do have air vents back here as well as 2 USBs to charge, so that is quite nice. I just wouldn't want to sit here in the middle row just because there is no way I'm not going to be elbow to elbow with people. So I would consider the UX strictly a 4-seater. And the limited space on the UX continues when we come back here to the trunk. We've got the power tailgate because we've got the F-Sport package. Now, you're only going to get 17.1 cubic feet of storage here, which is really not very large, even for one of these subcompact SUVs. You can see we've got our camera case here, and there's just not a lot of room for it with the way that this roof is angled. So if you had something taller, you're probably not going to fit it in there. Just look how tall this load floor is. The one thing it does have that's kind of nice are these fold-out grocery hooks, but honestly the bags are going to sit so high that it almost doesn't even want to hang on the hooks. That's a little bit weird. Lexus would not quote me the storage space when you fold down the rear seats, so we're just going to guess and say it's also not a lot. So I'm really not that impressed with the UX. You do get a tiny little bit of storage under here, but you don't get a spare tire, so I'm really disappointed that they weren't able to lower that load floor just a little bit. So if you are looking for something very practical with a lot of space, I think you're going to be better off with possibly a Prius or even a Toyota RAV4 hybrid or Venza. So time to experience the Lexus UX, the company's baby model, out on the road. And Lexus offers this UX in two flavors. You can get the regular UX 200 or you can get the UX 250H, which is what we have. Now, no matter which one you get, you're gonna get a 2-liter 4-cylinder engine under the hood, but on the hybrid, you're also gonna have dual electric motors, giving it a total of 181 horsepower, going out to a CVT. The hybrids are all-wheel drive. It's not a true all-wheel drive system. It's a lot like the all-wheel drive system in the Prius. If you've watched my previous video on that vehicle, the all-wheel drive Prius, you get a 7-horsepower electric motor on the rear axle, driving the rear wheels, and that provides you with the all-wheel drive. So unfortunately, that rear motor is very limited in its capacity. It only works up to 43 miles an hour. So if you're going over 43 miles an hour, you're driving a strictly front-wheel drive vehicle. Now you can also get the UX as a gas-only vehicle that again has a 2-liter 4-cylinder engine, but that only produces 169 horsepower. So if you want the quote faster UX, it's going to be this hybrid one. So 0 to 60 takes about 8.6 seconds, and we're actually going to show you that right now. But first, I'm going to put it in sport mode, and I'm going to turn on something that this vehicle has called active sound control. And before I even explain it, I just want to show you what it does. So just listen closely to what you might be hearing from the speakers. Ready? Did I just hear a shift? I did just hear a shift. Now, I mentioned to you, right, that this vehicle has a CVT, and I hope that came through the stereo, but what I just heard was like it was changing gears. Now, Lexus says that this CVT is supposed to mimic 10 gears on a transmission, but when I put it into sport mode, as I showed you on the interior, it switches to a tachometer, and I'm watching that tachometer stay at 1 RPM, and the noise from the active sound control goes brr, brr, brr. Now the needle isn't actually moving like it would on a shift, so it's faking it. It's faking the sound of a gear change. I've never heard a car do this. It's a very, very strange sensation to hear the car shifting but not actually feel it changing ratios. Just a very strange thing. Now you can turn the active sound control off, thankfully, if you don't like the way it sounds. So I'm going to go ahead and turn around here. Let's see what it sounds like now without the active sound control engaged. Ready? Flooring it. Yeah, see, okay, now I just hear the regular, CVT not shifting. I've been in CVTs that do simulate gears. Even the Corolla that I drove a week or two ago, that had the same CVT as this, and it kind of simulated gears. This one just doesn't, for whatever reason. The active sound control just kind of fakes it for you, but you can turn it on or off. It gets louder with sport mode. I found it kind of annoying, so I just left it off most of the time. I don't think most people are going to be driving the UX like I just did, matting the throttle and going nuts. I think most people are going to drive it normally, where it's very quiet. The CVT keeps the RPMs low. It's very quiet and comfortable in here. The ride is a little bit busy, but compared to other subcompact SUVs, I think that this actually rides really well. And it is much quieter in here than most Toyota branded vehicles, including the RAV4 hybrid, which shares a platform with this, the Corolla hybrid. I think this is quieter and more refined in here. Now, this is an F Sport model, or at least Lexus brands it as so. What a facade that is. There is really nothing sporty about this. When I first hopped in it, I thought, oh, the steering is, kind of accurate. It's definitely like sportier than a Prius. And then I really pushed this car through a corner and I realized, oh boy, like the steering just feels real artificial. It has like an artificial weight to it. It doesn't actually have a whole lot of feedback. The front tires just do not have a lot of grip. If you try and push this car real quick through a corner, you're going to realize, oh boy, it was not designed for this. It doesn't like to be hustled at all. It likes to be driven at sort of normal speeds. So it's best to consider the F Sport as mostly an appearance package. And like I said, the exterior I think looks better as an F Sport. The interior looks way better as an F Sport. So I don't really, and you get a lot of package stuff, heated and ventilated seats and stuff with the F Sport. So I don't think you should necessarily stray away from the F Sport. Just don't consider it to actually be sporty. This vehicle weighs 3,600 pounds, which is not terrible for the class, but with only 181 horsepower, it does not feel fast. I mentioned the 8.6 seconds 0 to 60 time. It's all about fuel economy with this guy. You're gonna get 41 mpg in the city, 38 on the highway, 39 combined. I've only averaged about 35, but I really haven't driven this vehicle in the type of driving that it likes to be driven in, which is like kind of stop and go. I've really done like kind of a lot of highway in this car at higher speeds where it doesn't do quite as well. But I have a feeling that if I reset the trip and I drove it like normally trying to get fuel economy, I have no problem getting 40 mpg out of it. So if you have a Prius now, your Prius is getting a little bit old, 10, 15 years old, your kids are out of the house, you don't need the size, you don't need the back seat as much, and you want something that feels a little bit more premium, but you still love how your Prius feels, I think this is a really, really nice option. The only problem that I have with it is the Toyota Venza does a lot of the same things, and it does it at a similar price with a lot more room inside. So that was the 2020 Lexus UX Hybrid. Now pricing starts at $34,500, about $2,000 less if you want to get the non-hybrid. I think the hybrid's a good value to go. It gets great fuel economy. It's a very smooth drivetrain as long as you really don't need that much performance, but this is the faster model, so I definitely think it's worth the $2,000 price gap. Now for the F Sport model, which I do recommend getting, is $36,500. You're gonna be jumping up about $2,000 more. I think it's worth it because it definitely looks better as an F Sport, and that F Sport interior is fantastic. Now you still have to add some options. That larger navigation system that I showed you does not come standard. You get a very tiny screen as standard. So as tested, you're gonna be spending about $42,500, which is pretty reasonable for this price category. The Mercedes GLA and BMW X1 can get a lot more expensive than that, although those vehicles are a lot bigger. Size is going to be something you need to consider here with the UX, because I think it is very limited on how small Lexus made this vehicle. You can get a lot bigger vehicles in this class. The fuel economy is excellent. The interior is excellent. I think that this does feel like a real premium Lexus inside. A lot of entry-level vehicles can often feel cheap in this category, and the UX does not. Now you do also have to consider the Toyota Venza, which also feels premium, but you do take that to a Toyota dealership, not a Lexus dealership, so you don't get the Lexus ownership experience. So for similar money, do you want the size and practicality of the Venza, or do you want the premium feel of the UX with its refinement and its quieter cabin? It's gonna be an interesting decision to make, but I think Lexus at least finally has an entry model that's worth considering. We really hope you've enjoyed this review of the Lexus UX Hybrid. If you liked it so much, be sure to leave a like and hit the notification bell to be alerted of our latest videos after you've subscribed to our channel. And be sure to check us out on all of the other social media platforms, including Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Yep, we've got a TikTok with cool videos of cars just like this one. And as always, be sure to download the CarBuzz app on iOS and Android. That's where you can be alerted of all of the latest car news. Just download that app, check it once a day, and you'll be alerted of everything going on in the car world. I'll see you next time.